Like, this case is so gut wrenching to me because as a social worker, I became a social worker because I wanted to help kids who experience stuff like this, because I went through this as a child myself by a friend of the family. So when you see stuff like this and you know, like, all of the work that goes into becoming a foster parent, all of the work that goes into becoming an approved adoptive parent, like, it takes 2 years to go through the entire process just to become an adoptive parent. I was a foster parent for 7 years. There was extensive interviewing, background checks, therapy stuff, like all type of stuff that they look into, that they work through to be able to even approve you to be able to get kids. And just listening to this story, I honestly feel in my heart of hearts that they went through the process to become adoptive parents just to harm these children. That's just what I believe. You tell me in the chat what you think.
Is the 100 years sentence given to them enough for the crime they did? This is the question many who hears this story often ask. They were given these boys out of trust. No one knew they had an evil plan right from the start. What happens when the people trusted to protect and nurture children become the source of their greatest suffering? In a quiet Georgia suburb, behind the doors of a seemingly perfect home, something unthinkable was happening. It was a house admired by neighbors, a family praised for their kindness and generosity. From the outside, it was everything anyone could hope for, a symbol of love, success, and compassion. What started as a routine investigation into something unrelated would eventually lead to revelations that stunned an entire community and left the nation asking, how could this happen? This isn't just a story about what was hidden. It's about what we missed. It's about the cracks we failed to see, the questions we didn't ask, and the devastation that followed. Stay with us as we peel back the layers of a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about trust, betrayal, and justice. Welcome to True Crime Story HQ. I thank you, my viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories update. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. William Zulock was raised in the heart of Georgia, surrounded by the kind of Southern charm that values family, hard work, and strong community ties. He grew up in a modest but stable household where his parents instilled a sense of duty and the importance of giving back. These early lessons stayed with him, guiding him into a career in public service. As a government employee, William built a reputation for being dependable and driven. His colleagues spoke of his meticulous attention to detail and his unwavering commitment to his job. Outside of work, William immersed himself in his community. He volunteered at local events, helped organize neighborhood gatherings, and was always willing to lend a hand to anyone in need. To those around him, William was the embodiment.
Now, William is the one who worked for the government. He the one in the marriage who worked for the government. Keep that in mind.
Of a dedicated public servant, a man with a kind heart and a strong sense of purpose. Zachary Zulock, on the other hand, was known for his charisma and sharp intellect. Growing up just outside Atlanta, he quickly developed a reputation as someone who could light up any room. His natural ability to connect with people led him to a flourishing career in the banking industry. Zachary's clients trusted him implicitly, impressed by his ability to simplify complex financial strategies. Beyond his professional success, Zachary was deeply embedded in the social fabric of his community. He attended charity fundraisers, supported local initiatives, and was a familiar face at events where his charm and enthusiasm were always on full display. His polished demeanor and generosity made him not just admired, but deeply respected by those who knew him. Their love story began when their paths crossed at a professional networking event. What started as a casual conversation quickly blossomed into something deeper. They found common ground in their shared ambition, their desire to make a difference, and their dream of building a life together. It wasn't long before they became inseparable, each finding in the other a partner who brought balance and inspiration. Their relationship reached a significant milestone on a sunny day in Atlanta when they exchanged vows in a stunning outdoor ceremony. The wedding was a celebration of love and unity, attended by family, friends, and colleagues who had watched their journey unfold. William and Zachary stood under a floral arch, promising to support and cherish each other through life's challenges. The ceremony was elegant but heartfelt, reflecting their shared values of authenticity and connection.
So to the outside world, they're perfect. They're the perfect couple. They're in love. They are married. That's very important. Like when you are a same gender couple, you have to be married to adopt, especially in the southern states. And to the outside world, they're like the perfect people. They believe in charity. They're so helpful. They're so loving. They're so giving. But behind closed doors, they're monsters. Typical people who have these type of sick disorders, you know?
Guests marveled at how the couple complemented one another. William's steady presence grounding Zachary's vibrant personality. Their vows spoke of building a home filled with love, laughter, and purpose. That day, their dream of creating a family together felt closer than ever, and they left the ceremony ready to begin their life as a married couple. To their community, William and Zachary were the definition of a power couple, successful, loving, and determined to make a positive impact. Their decision to adopt children seemed like the natural next step in their story. They wanted to share their good fortune and create a stable, nurturing home for children who needed one. From the outside, their marriage and family life seemed idyllic. But beneath the surface, the foundation of their story was far from what it appeared to be. What began as a picture-perfect union would later unravel into one of the most harrowing betrayals their community and the nation would ever witness. The desire to expand their family was one of the driving forces behind William and Zachary Zulock's marriage. They shared a vision of not just building a life together, but also giving back in a profound and personal way.
How are they giving back by having this stuff go on with their adopted kids? They went through all that process to adopt these kids just to abuse them? That's sick.
Adoption seemed like the perfect path to realize this dream. Their journey began when they connected with a Christian special needs adoption agency that focused on placing children in stable, nurturing homes. The agency, well known for its rigorous screening process and emphasis on aligning families with children in need, introduced the couple to two brothers. The boys were young, one still learning to read, the other just beginning to understand the concept of family. The brothers had endured a difficult start in life. Their early years...
And look at them, they look like the perfect family. The perfect family.
Were marked by instability and a longing for a place to belong. Moving from foster home to foster home, they had little consistency, and the idea of having permanent, loving parents seemed like a distant dream. When the Zulocks expressed interest, the agency saw in them the promise of stability and opportunity. William and Zachary's professions, their outward commitment to family, and their strong ties to the community made them appear as ideal candidates. After an extensive vetting process and several meetings with the boys, the adoption was finalized. For the first time, the brothers had a home they could call their own. In the early days, life in the Zulock household seemed almost storybook perfect. William and Zachary spared no effort in helping the boys adjust. There were family vacations to the beach, trips to amusement parks, and celebrations of milestones like birthdays and school achievements. The boys, once timid and uncertain, began to show signs of blossoming in their new environment. They smiled more, laughed more, and started to believe in the promise of a stable future. Neighbors and friends.
You know what we call that in therapy? Love bombing. They was love bombing the kids while the kids were going through their honeymoon phase in the new home. They showering them with gifts, trips, taking them and doing all these things that they never did before because they were in foster care. They also did something by keeping them together because they're siblings, right? And their biological parents are not around. So they made these kids believe that they were the end all to be all because it makes it easier for them to manipulate the kids and later on. So they're telling them, oh, we're going to take you all these places. They're taking them all these places, doing all these things, buying them all this stuff. You got to think they're a wealthy couple, you know? And then later on, when they start to manipulate and abuse the kids, they can say, oh, I'm going to take this away, or I'm going to send your brother away, to use that for the trauma bond. Does that make sense? That's how they do that for the manipulation and the trauma bond. So that's very important to pay attention to.
Often commented on the transformative effect the Zuloks seemed to have on the boys. To the community, William and Zachary were shining examples of what it meant to give back. The couple was seen attending school events, cheering from the sidelines at soccer games, and participating in local activities that brought families together. The Zuloks' home became a symbol of compassion and second chances. The boys, once overshadowed by the hardships of their past, now appeared to thrive under the care of two devoted fathers. They had new clothes, attended the best schools the area had to offer, and were introduced to hobbies and experiences that had previously been out of reach. But as we will see, the idyllic picture of this family was only a carefully constructed illusion. What the world saw on the surface masked a much darker reality, one that would devastate the very trust the Zuloks had worked so hard to build. It started with small, seemingly insignificant inconsistencies. Teachers at the boys' school noted changes in their behavior. Once lively and engaged, the brothers became withdrawn and unusually quiet.
That's why I don't understand why the teachers didn't notice the change right away. Kids who go through childhood experiences like this, they start to withdraw. They no longer find joy in things that they used to enjoy. They laugh and giggle less. They don't want to play with other kids like they used to. They're less outgoing and stuff like that. They also start like wetting the bed. They also start eating differently, like their eating habits change. There's so many signs. And as the teachers, I'm surprised that they didn't pick up on the signs and start reporting it to CPS.
Quiet during class. Their grades began to slip, and they avoided eye contact during conversations. At first, these signs were attributed to the natural challenges of adjusting to a new environment. After all, the boys had experienced a turbulent start to life. Neighbors occasionally noticed the boys clinging to each other, even in casual social settings. They seemed overly cautious, as though afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing. Some recalled moments when the children flinched at sudden movements or seemed uneasy when left alone with their adoptive fathers.
And nobody reported it. Why? That's what I will never understand.
These subtle
There's always signs. Always signs.
signs were dismissed as the quirks of shy, introverted children. Despite these red flags, no one suspected the truth. William and Zachary's outward personas shielded them from scrutiny. They were known for their charm and generosity, and any concerns were brushed aside as misunderstandings. The couple's crimes came to light after a member of a local pedophile ring was caught downloading young one's sexual content. This individual then revealed the Zuloks' involvement in producing young one's sexual content with their adopted sons. Investigators uncovered shocking material that pointed directly to William and Zachary. What followed was a meticulous investigation. Law enforcement obtained warrants to search the Zuloks' devices and home. What they found was chilling. Digital messages, Photographs and videos painted a harrowing picture of the abuse that had taken place within the walls of their suburban home. Among the most damning evidence were exchanges between Zachary and other individuals, discussing acts of exploitation. The investigators were thorough, piecing together a timeline of events from the digital evidence. They worked tirelessly to connect each file, each message, and each image to the couple's activities. It was a painstaking process, but one that left no room for doubt. When the full extent of the crimes came to light, it sent shockwaves through the community. The very people who had been trusted to provide safety and love had instead turned their home into a place of unimaginable harm. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. The investigators and legal teams who worked on the case showed extraordinary courage and determination. They knew the importance of bringing the truth to light, not just for the victims, but for...
So there was one guy who got arrested and questioned because he had the FBI, which is the GBI in Georgia, came across an IP address who binged for CSAM. CSAM is an acronym for basically like child videos that are inappropriate. Okay? So when they came across that, they questioned him and asked him, why are you watching this? Where'd you get this? And then he said, oh, I got this from such and such. So they were buying the videos. This young man was buying the videos from Zachary and William's site because they were selling these videos, these CSAM videos, of the things that they were doing with their young sons that they adopted for the last 2 years. They got over 7 terabytes. Do you understand how much space and storage and data that is? 1 terabyte can hold up to 500 hours of video. And they found 7 terabytes. Just let that sink in for a minute.
For a community grappling with the horror of what had been hidden in plain sight. Their efforts ensured that William and Zachary Zulock would be held accountable. But the revelations left a lingering question. How had such atrocities gone unnoticed for so long? As the case unfolded, it became clear that the community, once so proud of this family, was left reeling with guilt, anger, and disbelief. The truth was devastating, but it was the first step toward justice for the 2 young boys who had endured so much. Their voices, once silenced, would finally be heard. And the world, now aware of the horrors they had faced, could no longer turn away. When the case of William and Zachary Zulock reached the courtroom, it brought with it a wave of emotion and shock, both from those directly involved and the wider public. The charges against the couple were as serious as they were devastating. The evidence presented included digital communications that demonstrated a chilling level of premeditation. Among the most incriminating was a message sent by Zachary via Snapchat, in which he described his intentions and attached explicit material saying, "I'm going to FK my son tonight. Stand by," along with...
Oh my God, he actually texted that and actually said that? Why did the friend who received the Snapchat message not use somebody else's phone in the house to screenshot that? Because on Snapchat the videos and the text disappear within 24 hours. But they have a feature on there where you can screenshot it. But if you do screenshot it, then they'll know. The person that sent it to you will know. So you could use somebody else's phone to screenshot it and then take it to the police. Or he could have left his phone open on that message, because once the message is open, it stays there until you close your phone. So he could have if that was me, I would have took that message right then and there and went straight to the police station. I wouldn't have passed go or no, I wouldn't even turn my phone off. Do you understand me? I would have put my thumb on the screen and just held it there and I said, "Hey, I need to report this." I would have went straight to the police station.
With images of the abuse. This message, along with numerous others, provided a glimpse into the horrific actions that had taken place behind closed doors. The charges included multiple counts of aggravated molestation and sexual exploitation of young ones. Each count carried significant weight, reflecting the severity of the abuse and the lasting harm inflicted on the victims. The prosecution meticulously outlined the case, detailing the evidence that had been uncovered, from digital messages to photographic proof. The arguments put forth by the prosecution left no room for ambiguity. They presented the Zulocks as individuals who not only betrayed their responsibilities as parents, but actively worked to exploit the trust placed in them by their community and the adoption agency. The evidence was overwhelming, and their crimes were impossible to deny. Faced with an airtight case, both William and Zachary Zulock entered guilty pleas. Their acknowledgement of guilt was a stark confirmation of the evidence against them. The courtroom, already heavy with the weight of the charges, fell silent as their pleas were recorded. The trial brought forward emotional testimonies from those affected by the case. Representatives spoke on behalf of the young victims, describing the impact the abuse had on their lives. The courage it took for these boys to come forward was evident, and their words served as a powerful reminder of the importance of seeking justice. Witnesses from the community also shared their reflections, expressing a mix of sorrow and disbelief. Many had once admired the Zulocks, and the revelations left them grappling with feelings of betrayal and guilt for not recognizing the signs. The response outside the courtroom was equally significant. Media coverage of the case drew widespread attention, prompting discussions about the systems in place to protect children and the need for stricter oversight. Advocacy groups used the momentum to push for reform, emphasizing the necessity of ensuring such failures are never repeated. When sentencing day arrived, the judge delivered a decision that would ensure the Zulocks would never harm another child again. Each man was sentenced to 100 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was unequivocal, a clear message that their actions were beyond reprehensible and would be met with the full weight of the law. The victims' representatives expressed relief at the outcome, acknowledging that while the trauma could never be undone, justice had been served. The community, too, found some solace in the knowledge that these individuals would no longer pose a threat. The courtroom proceedings marked a turning point, not just in the lives of the victims, but in the broader conversation about safeguarding children. The bravery of the investigators, the dedication of the prosecution, and the resilience of the young boys all contributed to ensuring the truth was brought to light. As the trial concluded, it left a lasting impact on everyone involved. For the victims, it was a step toward healing. For the community, it was a reminder of the importance of vigilance and compassion. And for society at large, it was a call to action, a plea to ensure that those who are most vulnerable are never left unprotected.
Amen.
For the two young brothers, the journey toward healing began the moment the Zulocks were removed from their lives. It was the first step in what would be a long and difficult path.
And the sad part about it, when they got removed from these dads as their parents, they were probably so happy and relieved, but sad at the same time, because not only did they give them like that love bombing phase where they gave them everything they ever wanted in life and gave them this amazing life and all these things, but they were also harming them at the same time, is how the trauma bond is formed. So even if you've never experienced this type of thing, you probably have been in a relationship with somebody before who you experience this type of love bombing, where they buy you all these gifts, take you all these places and do all these things, but then they lie and cheat on you or hit you, and it makes you want to leave, but then you love the fact that they do all these nice things and they're so kind and so loving and so giving and so generous, and you're just like, well, if I just love them more, maybe they will go back to who they used to be. But they were never that person to begin with. That was a facade. Just like with these two, they went through the whole process to get married, be together, adopt kids, just to harm them. Just to harm them. They did all this just to harm them. There's no way in 2 years that they were able to record over 7 terabytes of content of these kids if they didn't already have this plan in place. They had cameras all over their house.
Path to recovery, but one filled with hope and support. The boys were immediately placed in a safer environment, away from the trauma they had endured. They were surrounded by compassionate caregivers who worked tirelessly to rebuild their sense of safety and trust. Therapy became a cornerstone of their healing process, providing a space where they could begin to process the pain and confusion they had experienced. Counselors tailored their sessions to help the brothers regain their confidence and rediscover a sense of normalcy. While progress was slow, the resilience these boys displayed was remarkable. With each session, they grew stronger, reclaiming pieces of their childhood that had been stolen from them. In addition to therapy, support networks stepped in to ensure the boys had access to resources that would help them thrive. Advocacy groups specializing in child abuse cases provided financial assistance for medical care, counseling, and education. These organizations also worked to ensure the boys' voices were heard, amplifying their bravery and resilience as they began to rebuild their lives. The community played a significant role in their recovery as well. Once the truth of the case was revealed, neighbors and friends rallied around the victims. Fundraisers were held to support the brothers' new caretakers, and initiatives were launched to raise awareness about child protection. The tragedy inspired many to take a more active role in safeguarding vulnerable children, fostering a collective sense of responsibility. The Zulock case exposed troubling gaps in the systems designed to protect children, prompting a larger conversation about how these tragedies can be prevented.
The other thing I was going to say was, too, as a social worker who have worked with foster kids and adopted kids, when you go through a private agency and you do your adoption, they don't adhere to the same laws we do as social workers who work for the county or a foster family agency or something like that. Like, we go and we check on the kids for the first 6 months. So every month we're checking on the kids. I don't know if their private agency that they adopted through would go and check on the kids, because you go and check on the kids at their school, at home, at their activities, and a social worker would have picked up on the signs right away.
One of the most glaring issues was the lack of comprehensive oversight in the adoption process. While William and Zachary passed initial screenings, their ability to exploit the system highlighted areas where stronger checks and balances are desperately needed. Experts have since called for reforms, including more rigorous background checks, ongoing evaluations of adoptive families, and enhanced training for adoption agency staff to spot potential red flags. This case also underscored the importance of vigilance within communities. Neighbors, teachers, and friends are often the first line of defense for vulnerable children. Many signs of abuse in this case were subtle but noticeable, and greater awareness of these indicators could help prevent similar tragedies in the future. The sentencing of the Zulocks to 100 years each without parole was a definitive statement of justice. However, it also raised questions about whether punishment alone is enough to address the broader issue of child abuse. Legal experts and advocates have emphasized the need for systemic changes that go beyond sentencing, measures that focus on prevention, education, and early intervention. Prevention starts with empowering communities to recognize and report signs of abuse. It also requires policymakers to prioritize funding for child welfare programs, ensuring that the systems in place are equipped to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Zulock case was a tragic reminder of the harm that can occur when those entrusted with the care of children abuse their power. Yet, it was also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the courage of two young boys who refused to remain silent. As we reflect on this case, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance, accountability, and compassion. It's not enough to bring perpetrators to justice. We must also work to create a world where children are safe, loved, and protected. So what can we do to ensure this never happens again? How can we strengthen the systems meant to safeguard the most vulnerable among us? These are questions that demand answers, not just from policymakers, but from every one of us. The fight to protect children is a collective effort. It requires advocacy, education, and the courage to speak out when something feels wrong. Together, we can honor the bravery of these two young boys by ensuring no child endures the pain they experienced.
I know that was heavy. That was heavy. But the simple fact that this family did what they did to these young boys is not only heartbreaking, it's honestly crushing to see the hurt, harm, and the danger that these kids went through and the healing that they're going to continue to have to go through for the rest of their life. I guarantee you 10 out of 10 that they have been diagnosed with complex PTSD, which is something that people go through when they experience this type of trauma. And I hope and I pray that they get the right healing. I hope and I pray that they get adopted by a new family who is very loving, who is very kind and attentive to their needs. Let's just pray to God right now for all of the kids who are experiencing this type of trauma and for these two young boys. God, I come to you tonight as we pray for these young boys who have been harmed by their adoptive fathers. We ask that you continue to watch over them, cover them. We ask that you pray. We ask that you watch over them, protect them, cover them, and keep them from any hurt, harm, and danger. We ask that you heal them so that they do not be able to hurt, harm other children based off the harm that they have been through. I ask that you bring them closer together as brothers and that you allow them to find trust in you so that they can continue to heal and change lives of others by bringing more awareness to these type of issues. I ask that you protect all the kids who are currently in foster care, who are currently being adopted, and who are currently in the homes with their biological parents. I ask that you save all the kids from any hurt, harm, danger, and trauma that they may experience at the harms and the hands of adults who don't love them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Oh, this just makes me want to cry, y'all. Just makes me want to cry. But that was a heavy case. That was a really heavy case. This is the case of William and Zachary Zulak. This case happened in Georgia, in Loganville, Georgia, and they have been arrested and were sentenced to 100 years. They did not go through a jury trial. They did a bench trial, which I think is astronomically amazing because I would never want these kids to have to go up to the bench and testify. Nor do you want the jury to have to go through all of the case evidence. That's traumatizing enough in itself. I've been on a jury before. I have been the jury foreman before, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's a part of our duty, but it's a lot. So I'll make sure that we keep talking about cases like this and that we keep bringing awareness to the things that children are going through in the foster care system as a social worker.